SaferWatch and law enforcement. SaferWatch is a powerful tool that enhances public safety by improving communication between law enforcement and the community it serves. Through the SaferWatch platform, agencies can send real-time emergency and non-emergency alerts, keeping residents and visitors informed about critical incidents, safety advisories, and community updates. Additionally, SaferWatch allows the public to report crime tips, suspicious activities, and threats, providing law enforcement with valuable intelligence. SaferWatch tips have led to the prevention of school shootings, stopped sexual predators, caught wanted fugitives and burglary suspects, and has even prevented suicides. This easy-to-use two-way communication tool ensures faster response times and helps protect the community proactively. By empowering both citizens and law enforcement, SaferWatch fosters a safer, more connected community. For more information, visit saferwatchapp.com or download the free SaferWatch app on iOS or Android. Welcome to The Tactical Pause, the official podcast of the Florida Deputy Sheriff's Association. I'm John Creamer, Deputy Executive Director of FDSA. Each episode, I sit down with law enforcement thought leaders to tackle critical issues shaping the future of public safety. Together, we'll explore key topics that empower law enforcement professionals to navigate challenges, lead with confidence, and advance their careers. Take a pause, gain valuable insights, and lead your career with purpose. Thanks for listening. Joining me today is Keith Dean, who's the Executive Director of the Florida Deputy Sheriff's Association. Today, we'll talk about the origins of our association, why it was created, when, and for who, and we'll get a vision of what the future looks like as we move forward. So, Keith, thanks for joining us today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you and how you came in this position with FDSA?
Sure, absolutely, John. Good morning, and good morning to all the listeners. So, back in 2008, I was the CFO for the Florida Sheriff's Association. And like all good CFOs, because the finances are in good shape, the CFO always gets the special projects. I got special projects like the Team Driving Challenge back when that was a state-granted program. Of course, now it's privately funded. And the Florida Deputy Sheriff's Association was a project that I got as the FSA CFO. The sheriffs came together and said, hey, we've got a great association for ourselves, but we want a great association for our deputies. We think that, deputies need their own benefits, they need their own training, and they need their own voice with the Florida legislature. So we set the organization up, literally from a committee. There was an FSA committee called the Florida Deputy Sheriff's Association Committee. And from notes on a legal pad, we kind of birthed this organization that is now 25,000 members, that has a statewide law firm, that has all kinds of incredible benefits for families. We're going to, of course, launch our own conference now in May. We have an apprenticeship program, and just constantly growing and looking for new ways to support and help our members. Oh, and our benevolent fund, the lending hand program. This year, we'll pump through more than $250,000 in that, in just hurricane relief.
Okay, that's amazing. So you started off as the CFO with FSA, and times and duties and responsibilities changed, and you were asked to pick up and become the executive director of FDSA, right?
Correct. Well, I was the only staff person for quite a while, and so it was just a project. I reported to the committee. We talked about what we wanted to accomplish. We wanted to give benefits, a lot of benefits. We wanted a legal program so that if they were involved in a shooting or a car crash or internal affairs investigation, we wanted to have legal support for that. And then we also wanted to make sure we took care of their families if something happened to them, particularly in the line of duty. And so what we did is we bought insurance benefits. We bought insurance rather to back that benefit. We, of course, weren't going to pay for it out of our funds, but so we bought insurance to cover that benefit to our members.
Okay. And Keith, so back in the day when this started, you said it started on just a notebook, on a pad of paper. So just for the listener, FSA, the Florida Sheriff's Association, has a number of committees, and you were the CFO for FSA. They asked you to be a part of this committee, and then as the full-time FSA liaison, and then this grew, and now it's a standalone organization, right?
That's right. We set up our own board of directors for after the organization was set up. We got our tax exempt status, did all the filings we have to do at the federal and state level. Then what we did is we set up a board, and many of the first board members were members of that FSA committee that served, of course, the inaugural board of the Florida Deputy Sheriff's Association. And then we kept growing and adding more members, providing more and more services. And as we took care of more and more people, the word of mouth got out there. People said, "Oh, I've got this program. You've got to get this. I benefited from this. Which is some great training. My house burned down, and this group stepped up and had a check for me the next day to help me out with incidental expenses and get me in a hotel room, get me a change of clothes, and make sure I had some cash to cover a few meals for a few days."
So let's go back for a second. So why did the FDSA get started? Was it a particular group of sheriffs in a geographical area that said, "Hey, we need this. My deputies need this," or what was the true catalyst for this to begin?
I think really across the board, we had some major counties, we had some fiscally constrained counties, but across the board, they all said, "Hey, this is something we need. We want our deputies to have their own voice with the legislature. We want something that's tailored specifically for them. And we need to go through and look at benefits that we can offer them that they want." And, of course, the first two benefits were just making sure that they had some protection for their family if they were killed line of duty or if they were disabled in some way. That they wanted really to have that benefit, but then also the legal benefit, which what they need. And there was a big demand for that. And that went from inception to now where we're working with attorneys on new cases for deputies every 3.5 days.
Which is staggering, right? So,
It really is.
and then for the listener too, so traditionally in Florida, most sheriff's offices did not have a collective bargaining unit or association. So FDSA stepped in and filled part of that gap with the legal representation that you spoke of and with some of the additional benefits like the insurance. Is that fair to say?
It is, yeah. So yeah, there's of course many unions. They do collective bargaining, and they have legal representation or assistance if needed. But a lot of them felt like maybe the union was not a good fit for them, and so what we developed was just an alternative. If a deputy sheriff says, "Hey, I like the union, I want to be a member of the union," that's their prerogative. If they say, "Well, I really just want this particular benefit," even the union provides it. If I can get it from FDSA, I'd rather be a member of this association. So it's all voluntary. They're not required to be a member, but we just want to give them options to the benefits they need in their careers, throughout their careers.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier there's a board of directors. So can you tell the listeners, is there a board of directors and how does that work? Who's the president and are there rotating positions and things like that?
Sure, absolutely. So we have our board, a full board. Then we also have our our executive officers, which is the immediate past president. We have, of course, the current president is Marion County Sheriff Billy Woods. We'll have vice president, we'll have a secretary, and we have treasurer. Typically, there's a lineage to become president. You start with secretary, you go to VP, president, and of course to immediate past president. We have had, and the treasurer is usually a 2-year term. Each term for the lineage of becoming president is also a year, but it's kind of a staggered term. So you have secretary, VP, president, past president. The treasurer really stays on for about 2 years because it's a very important role. They help manage the budget. They report back to the board of how our finances are, if we're staying alive with our budget, if we need to make a budget amendment, if we start a new program. Of course, they'll ask the board to approve us funding that program and putting it in place for that year. So the treasurer is a very, very important role.
Yeah, there's a lot of intricate things, and especially coming from a law enforcement perspective, having been a police officer and a deputy sheriff, most of us don't get in this line of work because we're good at math. So I could certainly understand why you would need somebody to be in that role 2 years to grasp, all the things that go into running a not-for-profit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So with the board of directors, is it sheriffs only? For the listeners who don't know, is it sheriffs only, or are there other representatives that are part of our board?
So we have both sheriffs and deputy sheriffs on our board. We have about an even mix. We have, and of course, they're from all the different regions throughout the state, different size counties, different budgets, fiscally constrained counties, and then some not fiscally constrained counties. Some that are major counties. So a good cross section throughout the state, from the Panhandle all the way down to South Florida.
Okay. And then we talked, or you talked briefly about the memberships. So what types of memberships are there in FDSA, and how does that look like? There's one for an individual, there's one for a deputy with legal and without, and then there's the sheriff purchase. So can you just kind of break those down?
Sure. Those are those the you use the word types of membership. That's really types of payment. Sometimes the sheriff says, "I want to pay for this for all my people," and again, it's a voluntary membership. If they elect not to be a member, they don't have to be a member. We have a lot of folks that pay for their own membership, but there are only two types of membership, and it's really just the general membership, which is available to anyone that works within a sheriff's office, including retirees, and that really provides. They're available for all the training. They have, of course, the benefits that we back by insurance policies. That's both health. If they have a heart attack on the job, we're going to cover them for that. Or if they pass away from that, of course, we'll pay their survivors. So all of that is wrapped up into the general membership. If a general member also wants the legal benefit, then they're able to purchase that on their own, or in some cases, the sheriff will purchase that for them. So it's general membership and with an add-on for the legal benefit.
Okay, a great distinction. So two types of membership, general, and then the membership that brings the legal with it. So if an officer is involved in a critical incident, they have an attorney.
Right. Yeah. So it's really just kind of an add-on benefit to the general membership.
Okay, and then the funding part. Break that down with what are the funding mechanisms? What are there? Like you said, there's a member paid, and then there's a sheriff paid, or what does that mean?
Well, so if a member says, "Hey, I'd like to pay for this on my own," we can debit their bank account for them. We can take a credit card. We can do it monthly if that's better for them. If the sheriff's office allows, we can do withdraw from their paychecks, and the sheriff's office will submit it to us. Or if the sheriff says, "Hey, this is a benefit I want to pay for my folks," then the sheriff's office will pay for it directly.
Okay, and there's a number of sheriff's offices that do that, correct?
There are, absolutely. Matter of fact, the majority of the counties in Florida, the sheriff is providing this membership in some capacity. Most counties are providing the general membership, and about half of the counties are doing the add-on benefit for the legal protection.
Okay, very good. And I was at the Leon County Sheriff's Office this morning, and we'll talk about that more later with the hurricane benefits that went out. But I met with Sheriff McNeil and Under Sheriff Cave this morning. And can you share with the listeners what's so important about Leon County and how they came on board and what Sheriff McNeil did when he first came into office?
Yeah, absolutely. Leon County has always been a great partner for us. They've really stepped up. They've always believed in us. Sheriff McNeil was the first sheriff's office to purchase the legal benefit, not only pay for the general membership for everybody, but also purchase that legal benefit for everybody. So that's money that the deputies and members don't have to worry about paying on their own. They don't have to worry about getting their bank account debit or the credit card charged. The sheriff says, "Hey, this is very important to me. I'm going to be a leader in the state, and I'm going to provide this benefit to my deputies first and foremost." And of course, when everyone saw the success they were having and how the deputies really liked it and really appreciated that, other sheriffs started looking at it as well and saying, "Wow, that's something I need to do as well."
And I know Sheriff McNeil was extremely appreciative about the program. He's always appreciative about what we offer to his deputies. So let me ask you this. So this is a big open-ended question, and I want you to really explain it to the listeners. How has FDSA changed since its inception 16 years ago? So when it was just a thought that was whispered and then scratched down on a notepad until today, what are some of the significant changes that you've seen or experienced or led the organization through?
Well, John, it's really been very organic growth. I mean, as we have grown, we've had more, we of course have more revenue coming in, which means we can invest in more programs. And that's what a successful association does. As you grow and you become more, you have additional funding coming in. And so let me touch on that real quick. Our funding comes in from our members, whether the member themselves are paying for it or if the sheriff's office is paying for it. Another big part of our revenue is our fundraising and sponsorship program. People want to be associated with us. People believe in the things that we're doing. And so many of our strategic partners will step in and help fund a lot of our different programs. And we really appreciate that, them doing that for us. Inspired Technology is a big one. They always step up for us. Alan Durham's organization, United Badges, does a great job with us. We really appreciate everything that they do. I know that we've got a lot of other folks that have stepped up recently, like Growing, helped out with our Live at Hand program. Really appreciate them doing that as well. And the list would be too long to go on, but that's a big part of what we do. And because of those strategic partners, we're able to launch new programs. So I wanted to kind of set the stage for it. With that funding, we're able to do some of the new things we did. When we first started, the only programs we really had was benefits, some training, and the benefits were, of course, backed by insurance policies that we purchased. We purchased them on behalf for our members, so that when something happens to them, we can take care of their families. That's our insurance. We're not selling insurance. We just back that benefit by insurance policies, because if we had a catastrophic event, if we had 10 deputies killed in a terrorist event or something like that, that would put us in really tough for us to pay out anywhere from $50,000 to $120,000 to each of those families in 1 year. So that's why we purchased the insurance. Of course, we have the legal program that has been phenomenal. We now have our own general counsel that manages the entire state. We have attorneys in every quadrant of the state. We have them; they can be there on the scene after a shooting or any use of force or anything that's needed in less than 2 hours. Those were our original two. Another item that we were able to add as we grew was a health benefit. So I tell this story, and that's, imagine two deputies are involved in a shooting. One deputy gets shot. He goes into cardiac arrest. The deputy comes over and starts administering CPR on him. Well, if the deputy administering CPR also has a heart attack, and they both die right there on the scene, it used to be that the deputy that was shot and had a heart attack as a result, that deputy would get a full payout of their salary. The deputy that was administering CPR and had a heart attack from that would not. Even their sheriff's office doesn't have a policy that would cover that deputy. So we really looked at that's something we need to change. And so what we did is we bought a health policy that will go in and pay that family so that both deputies get a payout. The deputy that was shot and died from that deputy will get paid their annual salary. The deputy that had a heart attack administering CPR on the deputy that was shot will now get $50,000. Their family will get $50,000 to help them kind of put their lives back together after that loss. What we didn't know when we bought that policy is it's for any type of health issue, any type of health death related to their on-the-job duties. Well, a year and a half, 2 years after we put that policy in place, we had something hit really big throughout the world called COVID. And that policy covered COVID deaths. We had a lot of members that were exposed to COVID out on patrol. We had a lot of members that were exposed to COVID working in the jails. We had people just in the sheriff's offices administration that's exposed to COVID. We were able to track that back, that they got the COVID through their normal duties for work. And when they passed away from that COVID, that health policy kicked in so that we were able to take care of those families. And we paid out during COVID over $1 million to families because we had that health policy in place. So that was something really big that we did. We were able to do because we grew as an organization. Another thing that we're working on right now is an apprenticeship program. Getting into law enforcement is a calling. It's not a high-paying job. It's a dangerous job. It's not just a career. It's truly a calling. There is a barrier to getting into law enforcement, though, in that you have to go to the academy for 6 months, and that's not paying. That isn't pay. Most sheriff's offices can't afford to send you to the academy for 6 months. So that, of course, limits the number of people that, if you've got a family, if you've got a job, you can't just not work for 6 months, change careers to become in law enforcement. So we lose a lot of people that way. So the FDSA apprenticeship program, which is, of course, state funded, we were able to pay sheriff's offices salaries for people who are in our apprenticeship program who are attending the academy. And what we've realized from that is that we've been able to get different recruits, different candidates. We've been able to get a more seasoned individual, not necessarily some in their 20s that may live with their parents and can afford not to work for 6 months. We're getting people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that go, hey, I've always wanted to do this. I've never been able to not work. And this removes that barrier for me to follow my dream and become a deputy sheriff. And then, of course, something I'm very proud of is coming up in May, we're going to have our very first training conference. And that's been a dream we've talked about for a long time. It's going to be in Jacksonville, Florida, the last week of May, and just incredibly proud of what we're doing there. And I know that if people attend this conference, they'll be so ready to sign up for next year's conference.
And we'll be right back. Every day you put your life on the line to protect and serve. Who's protecting you? United Badges Insurance Services operates as a dedicated resource for the first responder public safety community. Serving thousands of first responders, United Badges offers a wide range of products including commercial insurance, group accident and health insurance, and personal insurance such as auto, home, renters, rental properties, vacation properties, boat, motorcycle, RVs, flood, and umbrella. United Badges serves active and retired public safety personnel, public safety agencies, public safety associations, public safety support businesses, and public safety families and friends. Experience the United Badges difference. Call 800-566-5990 or visit unitedbadges.com to request your free insurance quote today. United Badges Insurance Services is a proud strategic partner of the Florida Deputy Sheriff's Association. Applicants are individually underwritten by each respective insurance carrier and subject to insurance policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states. Promotional material for descriptive purposes only. Now back to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's gonna be very exciting. But going back to the original days when this came to life, like I said, from a notebook pad, back then you were the only paid staff member. And from what I remember, there are even times when sometimes you didn't get paid. This was a passion project for you. Talk about those days to how many people are on the staff today, and just the stark difference between back then and today and how we've grown.
Sure. So again, when this was just a committee and then when it was a new association, I was the only staff person. I was the other person working on it. I still had my duties with the Sheriff's Association, but this was definitely a passion project that I worked on, and continue to grow it, continue to look at new opportunities, continue to get buy-in from deputies and sheriffs throughout the state to be part of this program. Now we have, of course, I'm the executive director. You are our deputy executive director, a great addition to our team. Kay Rowe has been with me. She does all of our fiscal operations. She manages all of our insurance policies and claims. She's been an incredible asset to this organization. The first person I was able to hire was Kay. I was so happy. I had worked with her for many years in different capacities. She has that unbelievable combination of accounting, fiscal experience, but also knows insurance back and forth. So just adding her to the team was a game changer for us. And so we grew this, of course, from inception, to now a 25,000 member association. And so, all the little bumps along the way, hitting that first 1,000, hitting the 3,000, we were building this and taking care of all the intricacies of running an association and taking care of the membership and the billing and the work with the insurance. So she's been with me through this since, as soon as we were able to hire an additional person. We have a newer person who I've worked with in different capacities before as well, Barbara Sipperly, hardworking lady, loves our members, loves talking to our sheriff's offices, loves taking care of our members and their HR teams, talking to them and making sure that they're aware of all the benefits that we offer, keeping them coached up, keeping them, keeping the members' data, updated and just taking care of us. She's a hardworking lady, and again, very passionate about each of our, not only just our members, but also the agencies that they work for. We just added, and I'm very proud of this, Daisy Gray. So I worked with Daisy with the Department of Education. That's where she was. We worked, hand in hand in setting up this apprenticeship program, and we are the only certified law enforcement apprenticeship program in the country. So this is a really big deal. We set this up together. We started the processes of making it happen. As we are growing and as we're looking to, as we've demonstrated there's a need for this program, we are anticipating having significant increases in funding for this program. And so it was very easy to bring her on board to help me manage this apprenticeship program that, quite frankly, is something the entire nation is looking at right now. Other sheriff's throughout the country are saying, hey, well, we need an apprenticeship program. Our state senators and representatives, congressmen are saying, hey, I want to talk to you about this. I'm talking with some of them next week about this program. They love the model. They want to see if this is something we can expand nationally. But again, this is something new that we've set up. And, I'm very, very happy as we look at growing this program, having Daisy Gray on our team.
Very good. It's very exciting. And you covered so many topics that were great accomplishments. The fact that the COVID benefit was bleeding edge. There were many sheriff's offices and police departments throughout Florida, the Southeast, and nationally that had no idea what that policy really covered. And that's something that you brought to the table, and that's something that really affected the families of deputy sheriffs across Florida. I mean, that really put you on the map as a thought leader when it comes to this, and especially with our partnership with United Badges Insurance Services as well. So
absolutely. Yeah. So at $1 million, that's roughly 20 families throughout the state of Florida that, they lost someone to COVID who contracted it working in the sheriff's office or in jail or on patrol, arresting somebody with COVID, being exposed to it, and they lost their lives from it. I mean, this is a dangerous profession. It's one that, I have gone around and talked to different career source meetings where they have recruits and people looking for jobs. And of course, they always like me to talk about our apprenticeship program. One of the things I ask people, I go in the room and say, tell me your worst day at work. Tell me about your worst day at work. Of course, it's usually an inter-office squabble or a supervisor who's been disrespectful to them. And I always kind of end the discussion with saying, have you ever been shot at? Have you ever had to shoot somebody? That's a tough day at work. And that's what the men and women of our members do more than anybody would ever want to. So they put their lives are in jeopardy every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a huge accomplishment. The growth of the association to be in all 67 counties with 25,000 members is another huge accomplishment. And then we started talking about the law enforcement apprenticeship program, which we call the LEAP program. Can you tell me where did that come from? So how did that start as an idea on a dry erase board to becoming a reality? How did that get started?
Well, it really started with one deputy, and you always got to do a test run. You can't launch a huge program without testing it first. And so what we did is we had one deputy, and we had the people kind of behind this passion, Sheriff Edenfield. And we had, of course, his chief deputy, Wes Birch, who stepped up and said, "We're going to invest in this. We know there's no funding for it yet, but we believe in this program. We're going to be the test run. We're going to make it happen." And the deputy, of course, has been working now for a year. We were able to go to the legislature and say, "Hey, we've proven it can work. So this is what we need," and of course, got our state funding that way. So I just really want to thank both Sheriff Edenfield and Chief Birch for helping us with this program that was there. It was definitely Sheriff Edenfield's inspiration, and I believe it was Wes Birch's perspiration and getting out there and making this happen. So he walked the Capitol halls with me many days, getting out and getting in front of people and pushing us forward. We would not have this program if it weren't for them. And I hope that they're as proud of this as I am when we've got, meetings with senators and congressmen saying, "Hey, what is this? We want to know more about this. We want to replicate this." So it's just been an amazing journey watching this thing grow. This year, we wrap up this year, we're going to have about 30 new deputies working throughout the state of Florida because this program was able to let them make that jump into their calling to become deputy sheriffs.
Yeah, it's amazing. So not only is it the first of its kind in law enforcement, it's also we know it's for a fact it's the first one that's ever been certified from an independent body. So it's amazing. And then summarize, there's another pillar of FDSA that a lot of people don't understand very much. It's our benevolent program. We call it the Lend a Hand program. Can you talk about that for the listener? What is that? How is a member of a sheriff's office eligible, and what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Lend a Hand program really is the passion project of Franklin County Sheriff A.J. Smith. He helped me a lot as this program was getting started. And he said, we need to have something that can help out our deputies. And it was a very small amount. We had a very small budget. We started off helping out with $250. That's really all we could afford at the time. We, of course, grew that to 500, and then we grew it up to 1,000. So essentially, if a deputy or a member or somebody in the jail, even somebody in the administrative office, if the sheriff says, hey, this person calls and says, hey, this person had a house fire, they have a child with a unique illness they're having to drive back and forth to Shands. One of the things that we really helped out with was in Lake County. There was a 3-officer involved shooting. Unfortunately, one of them was killed in the line of duty, but the other 2, of course, were hospitalized. And we put the family up in the hotel across the street from the hospital so they could be close to those deputies as they began their process of healing. Typically, it's about $1,000 that we'll do, but we have also integrated fundraising for those and have paid up to $50,000 for deputies and their families in those situations. The deputy's family that passed away and then of course the 2 that were hospitalized. I think we did probably $75,000 all with help from our strategic partners to help out those families.
Yeah. So what we say, is FDSA exists to serve those who serve, and I think that's nowhere more prevalent than the Lend a Hand program. When we show up and a deputy sheriff in his or her darkest hour, and we show up and put cash in their hand to get them through the night. It's not life altering, but it certainly is a couple of bricks in the bridge to returning to normalcy. So
Absolutely,
it's a big deal. And you're right. Going back to the deputies in Lake County, what a significant event that was for the entire agency. And we showed up with money. We helped with additional fundraisers, and as you mentioned earlier, Chad Rowan with Growing With You did a T-shirt fundraiser that put $43,000 back into the hands of the families too. That would help with some of the long-term health costs. And then along the same lines, Keith, just last week we met, and the Hurricane Relief Committee met and was able to decide about distributing some funds. Can you tell the listeners what is that, and how long have we been involved in hurricane relief, and what are some of the aspects of that?
Yeah, sure. So we've done this twice now. We in partnership with the governor. They've between the governor for two years, and then also with some help from Badger State Sheriff's Association, we've put over $1 million in the hands of deputies after a hurricane. Unfortunately, we've had to do it for some of the same deputies twice, but $1 million. We're helping pay deductibles. We're helping people get their homes repaired. When a hurricane hits, most of us can evacuate. I know I have. I had a hurricane hit where I lived a few years ago. I left. Deputies can't do that. They've got to be on scene. They're protecting lives, protecting people that can't evacuate. They're keeping from more damage happening, people from coming and taking advantage of situations and looting and doing things like that. They're directing people, making sure they've got water, they've got food, and they're taken care of in these times of devastation. So deputies don't have that option. They've still got to go to work. It's the old saying, we're all leaving from the hurricane, we're fleeing the hurricane, they're fleeing toward the hurricane to take care of those people that can't take care of themselves. It's
an amazing program, and I'm so honored that we're a part of that. And it was a personal delight for me to meet with Sheriff McNeil this morning and Under Sheriff Cave to deliver that check. And there'll be, I think in all total, there's 121 deputies in 15 different counties that will receive a portion of $200,000 from the Lend a Hand budget that will go back to help them restore their lives, right?
Yeah, this most recent, that's the most recent run from the money the governor was able to give us. Of course, we've got, like I said, over in total between all the different funding, over $1 million the last 2 years.
Right. Okay, and then if you would, so we're moving into this new realm. We talked about how things got started with FDSA and how the association's grown and how you've had to grow as a leader too, from being, a one man band, and now you have a staff, a team, and the association's growing, and you want to take it to a new level. So why did you choose to have a conference, and then why this particular conference? Tell the listeners why that's so important to your vision.
Well, it's kind of going back to why this organization was started. It was to take care of deputies. I mean, FSA is the premier law enforcement association for sheriffs in the country, by far. There's no comparison. So the sheriffs are well taken care of, but the deputies need to be taken care of too, from the men and women out on patrol all the way up to the chief deputies. And so that's our job. That's what we're supposed to do. And so we've wanted to make sure that we put together a conference with specific training, all kinds of different courses, and to make it fun too for the men and women that all work for each sheriff in the state of Florida. We're just continuing to fulfill our mission, which is taking care of everybody in the sheriff's office. And that's where we are. The curriculum we're going to have is geared toward everyone in the sheriff's office. It is hands-on, it's tactical training, it's mental wellness training, it's some financial training. Deputies we need all of that. Looking toward retirement, looking for, taking care of your family financially, taking care of your mental health. That's so important. And unfortunately, it's something that a lot of people don't like to talk about. Tactical training, that's something you're going to use every day. I mean, we've had, because of some of the training, we've had deputies defend themselves from people that got the jump on them and try to take their lives. And they were able to fight back and keep their lives. And that's what we do. Again, it's continuing our mission. It's building our brand as being the premier deputy sheriff's association in the world.
That's right. And this conference in particular, this is not like any of the other law enforcement conferences that I've ever been to in my tenure. This is a hands-on conference. Yes, there's some classroom material, and there's some very important things that we will talk about when it comes to wellness, resiliency, and finances. But there's also a lot of hands-on components from, chemical munitions to, I think there's some sniper craft, and I believe there's some defensive tactics and other things like that. So good on you for bringing this conference in and making it so dynamic. And so that leads me back to this: is how did you come to be in contact with Larry Bearsnoy with TAC Ops, and why them? Why this format?
Well, one of the people that, law enforcement's a tight community, and training law enforcement officers, particularly mental wellness, is even a smaller community. We met through a mutual friend and supporter, Kathy Greenberg. She introduced the two of us and you guys need to get together. We had a couple of conversations. I, of course, went and attended a conference that he was putting on. You, I know, have attended one of his conferences, and I was just blown away. I knew that was the conference partner that FDSA needed to have, and it's going to be a very impressive conference. Again, like I said earlier, our job, if it's your job to come to the conference, it's my job to make sure you come back the following year. So, and I assure you, any attendees that attend this conference they'll be asking, when can I sign up for next year?
That's right. I think it's going to be fantastic. And the one I got to attend was in Nashville, and your phrase "blown away" was right. It was amazing. It was one of the best conferences I've ever attended. So, looking downrange, what do you see in the future for FDSA? So we've talked about. I mean, you have four huge pillars. You have the lend-a-hand program. You have the training that we do across the state. You have the insurance benefits, and then we also have the legal. So those are the four spheres that we operate in. But how do you see those things continuing to grow? Is there something new? I mean, the LEAP program and these other things that's growing.
I think the something we have worked on, and I know it's a passion of yours, is mental wellness. We're continuing to look at ways to give deputies opportunities to confidentially talk about things they're struggling with, and do it so that it's not in a bad situation, something they feel comfortable with, something they can just let loose and talk to someone and know that it's confidential. If a sheriff's office is providing that service, a lot of times it may be, I don't want people knowing about my business. And that's understandable. But if their association, the organization rather, that's there to take care of them says, hey, this is something we're making available to you. It's confidential. You can do it on your lunch break in your patrol car. You can do it, at home, whatever time's convenient for you. Talking to someone one-on-one. We're continuing to look at that as one of our priorities. We're talking with a couple different groups to develop the resources available for that. But I think, in addition to, continue to focus and grow the apprenticeship program, which is actually going to help give us more members, that taking care of those folks mentally is going to be something that we continue to develop and grow and add to our, I think we're going to quickly become a six-legged table if we continue like this.
Yeah. It's very exciting, Keith. And listen, this is our first inaugural podcast, and it's a treat to have you on there. Keith, if you don't know Keith, he travels across the state. His passion is serving deputies. throughout Florida, and it's exciting to be a small part of what's going on with the organization. So, Keith, thank you for your vision. Thank you for your leadership. And as we close out, I would just like to thank the listeners for taking the time to tune into this episode. Visit us on our webpage, which is fldeputiesheriffs.org, or download our app, which is available in the App Store.
Thank you for listening to The Tactical Pause, the official podcast of the Florida Deputy Sheriffs Association. FDSA proudly serves over 25,000 deputy sheriffs across the state with legal benefits, vital training, and financial assistance in times of need. You can listen to previous episodes at fldeputiesheriffs.org or wherever you get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed the show, please leave us a review and encourage your friends, coworkers, and those in the law enforcement community to listen as well. To learn more about the Florida Deputy Sheriffs Association and how we serve those who serve, visit our website at fldeputiesheriffs.org.